So before we begin our session on Mind Matters, as always, students, we'll first listen to the speaker, keep ourselves muted, and towards the end, the house will be open to our thoughts for question and answer session. Namaste, Sonali ma'am, Annapurna ma'am, once again, Shri teachers and dear students. I welcome you to the fourth session of our invaluable series, Mind Matters. In this session, we will learn about Rag Chikitsa or music therapy. In the 7th century, the term rag was defined for the first time by sage Matanga in his book Brihadeshi. Rag, it is a combination of tones which, with beautiful illuminating graces, pleases the people in general. To learn more about the impact of different ragas on our mind and health, we have with us today a great artist, Hindustani classical vocalist, and a scholar in psychology and music. A very warm welcome, Mr. Siddharth Sahai, to Sri Ram Millennium School, Faridabad. As we proceed, I'll invite our principal, Sonali ma'am, to address us.
Namaste, namaste everyone. Namaste children, namaste teachers, and namaste to all the parents who might be watching us virtually. And a special namaste to Siddharth. Thank you. I am going to begin with a big thank you because you've taken out the time. Most of you know that Siddharth is a Shri parent. And the school talks so much about the parent-school partnership. So thank you, Siddharth, for always being there, supporting with all the various initiatives that we take and sharing your knowledge with the children. When I remember the day you mentioned music therapy, and I kind of immediately grabbed onto that topic. So, with so much happening in the world, we are trying to do the best through our Mind Matters series, and I'm sure all that you have to share with us today is going to be a big help for our children. Also, thank you, Vincy ma'am, for playing the wonderful poem by Ramdhari Singh Dinkar. I so believe in that when you light a lantern for yourself, you actually light up the way for others. So, with that thought, over to Siddharth for him to share his knowledge, and I'm sure it's going to be a really, really interesting session. Thank you once again, Siddharth. Over to you.
Thank you, Sonali ma'am. I'll also invite Divyansh Chaubey to introduce the speaker for the day officially.
Siddharth Sai is a trained Hindustani classical vocalist and is a student of most ancient style of classical Indian classical music called Drupad. He is a music therapist and is also pursuing his PhD in analyzing the impact of Hindustani classical music on the stress level of mid-aged urban professional in North India. He is a trained psychologist and has a keen interest in learning and exploring the power of musical notes on human physiology and on their therapeutic effect on mental well being. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. Namaste to everyone. It's a pleasure and honor to be here because one of the main reasons why I'm so excited about this is that as was talked about in the introduction, I love to explore. And the basic ingredient about basic requirement for exploring something is a mutual give and take. The more we share, the more we understand, and our teachers at Shri would be able to testify that the more they teach, they're teaching the same subject every day, but the more they teach, the more they learn about that subject, and the better they get at it. So I believe sharing is a great opportunity to learn, and that's the place I want to start with. That thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to learn a little bit more about music. As a matter of fact, the learning has already started with this whole virtual reality of our times, where I have to now figure out how to get the background right and get my PPT up and stuff like that. So the learning has begun. So, welcome. And I have the privilege of talking about a subject which is relevant, which has been relevant, and has always been in context since times immemorial. And I was talking to Annapurna ma'am before while prepping up for this session. The idea is not to present a lot of stuff on these slides. This is a generation which can always YouTube and Google most of the information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a story of music, the way I have seen it. Like most things in this world, uh, all stories are individualistic. Like, for example, they say Ramayan. For example, there is a Ramayan of Valmiki, there is a Ramayan of Tulsidas, there is a Ramayan of Siddharth, there is a Ramayan of Sonali ma'am, there is a Ramayan of Binsi ma'am, Ramayan of all of us. All of us have our own Ramayan. The story plot might change slightly, but the way we look at reality is different from person to person. So the way I look at this journey, I'm going to talk to you about it, and I invite you to create your own journey, create your own experiences, create your own interpretations of what you see and hear. Just because someone who's a scholar came and talked to you about music and the way he sees music is not a requirement enough for you to copy that and see music in that particular way. If by the end of this 25-30 minutes I'm able to get you to a point where you can look at music from a different perspective, you can think about it from a different perspective, I think our purpose here would be served. And I'll try and be authentic to my story, and I invite you to be authentic with your own experience. With that, I jump into my slide, and there is a lot of stuff on the slide, so you can read while I'm talking, but I'm going to tell you the story. The information is on the slide. So, music has been an integral part of our lives since the early man kind of had consciousness of what's being done around. History has changed. The way we studied history about 10-15 years ago, a huge change has happened because of scientific advancements, DNA studies. We now know exactly that 10,000 years ago, the human, and it's there in the books, and I'm quoting the book called Sapien, an extremely famous book. So from human beings moved from Africa to the rest of the world, and the experience is that the first thing they experienced was music and sound, and they tried to explore with sound and music. But I'm going to take you down the road of Hindustani classical music. Now let's try and understand what the context was for our Hindustani classical music.
Siddharth
Our
sir, sorry
ancient
to interrupt.
sadhus and rishis. So what's happening is these ancient rishis and sadhus were basically our scientists. These scientists had their laboratories outside the villages, and they used to call them ashrams. Just like our doctors and scientists wear that white coat, these scientists used to wear an orange cloak. The reason behind orange is that it signifies fire. They were called Dvijas, ones who are born twice. Brahmins, Dvijas, are the ones who are born twice, which primarily means that they have been cremated and now their new birth is for spiritual growth and experiments and research. And that's the reason why they used to wear orange. And anyone who was wearing orange was looked upon as a rishi, or in our modern terms, a scientist. These ashrams were supported by the kings and the rich people in the community. They were children of the community were sent to these ashrams for trainings. But look at it is in this way. In the modern context, what do we have which is similar to an ashram? It's like a school or a laboratory. Now, all of you know, like for example, All India Institute of Medical Sciences. It's a research facility which also runs as a school for medicine, and all these big colleges which are research facilities, all these universities which are research facilities and also act as a school for people to come and learn. So these ashrams were basically laboratories where rishis and rishis, which are basically were our scientists of those times, were working on different dimensions of life, different things which they thought were important for one, healing and preservation, and two, enlightenment. One of the basic things about this civilization is that they have always talked about enlightenment. Even it's surprising. You go to somewhere, a small village in India. You go to a village in India, and you find an illiterate person working in the field, and you walk up to him and you say, what do you want from God? And this is the only country in the world where that person is going to say, I want moksha. Now this person doesn't know anything about education, doesn't know anything about literacy, is working in the field 24 by 7, works in this field, goes back home, comes back to the field the next day. But here's a person who's talking about moksha, which is basically enlightenment. This is the only civilization in the world where things like this are there, present at the grassroots level. And a big part of the credit for a big part for this goes to the rishis and the scientists which we had in our ancient times. So these rishis decided, they understood the power of vibration and sounds, and they started creating these small phrases of sounds which could be used for physiological purposes and psychological purposes, for healing purposes, and also for changing the certain dimension of one's consciousness. And these were all recorded. Now I know that the introduction, Vinci ma'am talked about how the word rag was used in this first 7th century by Rishi Matang in one of his doctrines. But one thing which I'd like to point out is that this civilization has not been very high on documentation. Most of our paramparas are maukhik. Like, for example, even today when I learn music, I learn from my guru, who actually, he has nothing in writing. He's learned these bandishes, these songs, these phrases from his guru, and he's teaching me these songs and bandishes, which I'm sometimes writing down on a piece of paper and sometimes not. I'm just memorizing them. So while documented history says that rags, the first time the word rag was used in the 7th century, we also know that they prevailed and they existed way before that. Actually, the first time we hear something of something which is similar to rag is in the Samaved, which is considered about 3,000 years ago, about 1,000 years ago from 0 BC. So about that time is when the Vedas, we start seeing the Vedas in certain formats. Of course, some say it's 2,500, some say it's 3,000. But around that time, we see the Samved, and Samved is what the thing about Samaved is that this is amongst the 4 Vedas, is that there are couplets written in poetic form, in a form which has a rhythm attached to it. And that's the reason why we believe that that's the basic document which talks about music, Hindustani Indian music, Bharatiya Shastriya Sangeet as it's called. So coming back to my story, these rishis and these munis, they started working on the different aspects of vibrations and music, and they created these rags for certain therapeutic purposes, certain physiological purposes. With the coming in of the 12th and the 13th century, with the coming of the Maharajas and the Rajas and the Mughal emperors, this music moved from ashrams and temples to the Raj Darbar, to the courts of these kings. And of course, what happened at the courts was that this was now being used for entertainment purposes. So this is one of the misconceptions which we have about Hindustani classical music, is that it is basically for entertainment, but that only happened in the 12th and the 13th century. The basic purpose of this kind of music was basically healing and for physiological benefits, and of course enlightenment. So this is the journey of a rag. This is how rags were created. It was the Indian genius, as I've written on my slide, which kind of discovered this rag chikitsa. The very reason why these rags were created was for healing and for therapeutic purposes. Now, I have noted down on the slide on how music impacts our brain and how what's the effect it creates. And of course, I will encourage you all and invite you all to go ahead and if you're interested in the topic, you can research it on Google and you'll realize what's the impact of music on our brain and of course our environment, and that all that is available. But forget
Sir,
the
we may have to
environment.
skip this.
And also see what happens is, forget about the theory of it. All of us know, like any music admirer would know, that when we listen to music, how it's capable of lifting one's mood. You know, if you've listened to music early in the morning while getting ready to for work, for your school, you realize that it completely changes the environment, it completely changes your viewpoint. I know that at Sri Ram, when you enter school, I once, the moment you enter school, when we go to school, and hopefully that's soon, there's some sort of music playing in the background in the morning, and that kind of completely changes the way you approach the day, you approach the activities you're involved with, and that's for all of us to experience. As a matter of fact, music is now extensively used for in areas like pain management, performance in sports, regulation of body rhythm, speech therapy, and there is adequate and more research available online for this. When I talk specifically about Nada Yoga, basically what happens is that the Indian music system kind of talks about two kinds of music. One is an external sound, the other is an internal sound. This is the only musical system where Anhat is equally important as an external sound. The sounds within these scientists, these rishi munis, the ones who created these rags, knew the power of internal sounds which are present in our body, and how could they be transformed into an external experience. And that's the process of music which they had. Now, ma'am, Dinsi ma'am, you can see the next slide, right? Science of Nada Yoga.
Yes, sir, we can see it. Nadia.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, we all know that sound has the ability to change environment. I'll give you an example. If, for example, we decide, like for example, the morning prayer which we had, the poem which we kind of heard from Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, it was supposed to evoke a feeling of patriotism, a feeling of valor, and look at the way it was recited with a certain rhythmic, strong rhythmic action, with strong pronunciation. But if it was for something which was to evoke Shringar or love, it would have been, the words would have been enunciated slightly differently. And that's what I'm trying to say. And that's the science which our ancient rishis kind of worked upon to create the experience of rags. And like for example, if I we know this very, and all of us know this, like for example, if somebody is angry, you'll see their pitch slightly elevated, they'll be shouting, they'll be speaking in high pitch in a shrilly voice. You'll know instinctively that they're angry because they're using vibrations and pitch to express a certain emotion. And that's what we do in music as well. The kind of rus which you want to display can be exhibited by the kind of pitching and the vocal use of vocal cords. The way you pitch a song, the way you present a song, can actually decide upon the experience which you create for the listener and the singer. uh, there is a lot of research available now, like for example, fever. Ma'am, Bensi ma'am, I move to the next slide. It's called research and rags.
Yes, sir. Yes, I think now
Uh,
it's working fine. Thank you.
Perfect. So, like for example, we know that rag Hindol, and it's a rag which is sung in the morning, is uh, it can cure fever. It has significant impact on fever. Memory enhancement Bhairavi. We know Bhimpalasi can be used for concentration. Something as basic as cough, cold can cough. Kedar is actually been seen, and there's adequate research to show that actually playing rag Kedar, listening to Kedar, singing Kedar can help you in basic common cold and cough. So, what are our rishis trying to tell us? And there is a lot of wisdom here. I'll give you an example. I Because of laxity of time and it's all available, but I'd like to give you an example. Like for example, Bhairavi, they're saying is good for memory enhancement. Now it's a morning rag. Let's try and see what are the rishis trying to tell us with this particular piece of information. Bhairavi is a morning rag. What they're saying, it enhances memory enhancement. Hence, we know that if you study in the in morning, you will be able to memorize better. There is a lot of wisdom in each of these notions, these ideas. Bhairavi, when sung in the morning, and enhance a person's memory, their ability to learn. So what the rishis are basically telling us, based on their research, what we are saying is that if you attempt Bhairavi in the morning while you are studying, your chances of memorizing are going to be higher in contrast to say doing it at any other time of the day. So that's immense. In my head, that just completely blows my mind, because what it's telling us is there is so much we can learn from it. So basically, they're also telling us that morning time is the best time to study and memorize stuff. So these are pieces of wisdom which we have. I wanted to give you an idea of how this works. So I'm going to put on my Tanpura so that I can give you a little bit of an idea of how this works. So I'll give you an idea. It's not like the whole Hindol rag would have an effect on people, but in a certain portion, like within a rag, there is an aroha and an avroh. There is an ascend and a descend, and a certain phrases. So, like for example, I'll tell you how rag Hindol works. This is basically the composition of Hindol. It's done in the morning, and of course you can listen to compositions, you can listen to instruments. Of course, the traditional Indian music instruments like a veena or a sitar, which is a newer addition, but basically a veena, when this rag is played on that has a maximum impact and can actually affect physiologically. I'll give you another example of, say, Kedar for kaf. It goes sa ma ma pa this is Kedar. And of course, we all know Kalyan. We know, a lot of us know of it as Yaman. There's slight difference, but Yaman is for heart diseases. Actually, the Escorts, which is now called Fortis now in Delhi, has a heart physician called Naresh Trehan. He's a major heart specialist, and he's actually told his patients to listen to Jagjit Singh's Yaman bandishes in order to help them with their heart disorders. So, Nire ga ga ga, Nire sa, so this is Yaman, to give you an idea. So basically, we have this rich inheritance, this rich heritage, which can be used. And what breaks my heart is when we talk about physiological alternate therapies and different avenues which are available. Music is considered as the mumbo jumbo of this field. It's considered a quack science. It's considered as something which is basically thing which is created in the head and doesn't exist in reality. And that's why people like me and colleagues like me, we all want to do our research in music so that we can theorize these findings and put it out there for the scientific world to explore and understand, and so that we can bring to light this great legacy which these rishis have given us, so that it can be used as a mainstream process of the healing and curing problems and issues, both physical and mental. So this was in nutshell what I wanted to talk to you about.